Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. All right. We are live. Is that right? We're streaming. We're live. We're awesome. This is great. Yeah. Got LinkedIn going. Got YouTube. Hello, everyone around the world, as well as here in Sacramento, California. Today, we're going to be doing the very first Central California ColdFusion Club meetup. We're going to be talking about ColdFusion 2025, doing a little bit of an intro on that, and that deep diving a bit into some of the CSV tools that are being introduced with ColdFusion 2025. So let's test out if this actually works. That absolutely didn't work at all, which is awesome. Cool. Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? Hold on. Oh, duh. That's why. There we go. All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to start off talking about our sponsor in just 1 second. I've got Ryan Brown here. He's going to tell you all about his company, what they do, what they can do for you. We'll talk about me just a little bit, who I am, where I've been, what I do, all of that. We're going to do like a general frequently asked questions thing. We're going to talk about what is CF, because there are definitely people in the audience who have not really heard of CF. They don't know what CF is necessarily, and they need to know why they should care. We're going to talk about some new additions coming to CF 25 in less than a month before the launch of ColdFusion 25. The beta is live right now. And then I don't know what the last thing is. Probably not important. We're going to talk about these CSV functions being added. So we're going to do some actual like coding, some deep dive stuff. It's some of my favorite stuff that's going into CF 25, and then we're going to take questions. Hopefully, you can wait and do questions at the end. If you don't mind, we're going to have questions probably coming in. We are streaming live right now to the XBite YouTube channel as well as to LinkedIn. So we'll be checking for questions there, as well as, I don't know, you can text me questions. Why not? We're all friends here. But before we get into all that, I want to introduce Ryan Brown. He's the CMO of XBite. And and you guys in the audience here can't see him, but you'll be able to hear him in just 1 second. So Ryan, give us your spiel. What does XBite Cloud do, and what do you do for XBite Cloud?
Hey everybody. Well, can you guys hear me? Say yes. Can you hear me? Good. No?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. No, we can't. We can't. Yeah. I'm just turning you up.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, I tested all the audio. It worked great on another platform. I jump in here and it stopped working and going chaos. I will blame it on the new AirPods Pro. Welcome, John. I see John is live with us on looks like on YouTube. Welcome, John. So XBite Cloud. We are a cloud provider, hosted provider. One of our specialties, among a lot of things, is ColdFusion. So we have some of the top experts in the server administration, management, and optimization space. And people come to us to host their mission critical applications. So when you got to have like everything working, when you got to have everything performant, and when you need the backing of a company who's going to stand behind you in 24/7, you come to XBite Cloud. And I do marketing for them. I do a lot of ColdFusion events. So Mark and I do a lot of work together. I've even been coerced to have a grass mohawk at the summit at the Vegas. So that was fun. And then proceeded to then dye it orange for Halloween and reuse it. So you come check out XBite Cloud. Give me your needs. If you are an on-prem customer, we also have a hardware side of our business, XBite Technologies. So we can really serve you wherever your data and infrastructure resides.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Ryan. Ryan and I definitely do a lot of good work together. His company is a great place to go and get VPSs that have everything set up already. They have great support. Basically, right out of the box, you can be using ColdFusion to run your business, and highly recommend that. All right. So, who's the guy in the poster stand? Me. I am the Adobe ColdFusion Senior Evangelist. I've been there since 2021. It's going to be 4 years in July, which is exciting. I'm a developer with nearly 30 years of experience. My first programming language was actually ColdFusion, and then I learned a bunch more. I'm a polyglot, which sounds like a heart condition, actually. I'm also an AI educator. I teach kids, schools, businesses about what AI is, the history of AI, what it can do for them, what it's not, why not to be afraid of it, why maybe to be a little afraid of it. I'm a keynote speaker and a huge pancake enthusiast. I love pancakes. Some of you may have even tasted my pancakes in the past and hopefully like them. Okay, generally speaking, what are we going to be talking about today? Is this being recorded? Yes, absolutely. This is being recorded. It'll be posted both to my YouTube channel, which is YouTube/@MarkTakata. It's going to be on the Adobe ColdFusion YouTube, which is YouTube/Adobe ColdFusion. It'll be, I think, also on the Xbyte. It's going to be everywhere. So if you got to head out early to go surfing, like John is probably waiting to go surfing. I know John. If you need to leave early, you'll be able to go and redo it. Can you join the beta? The beta's still open right now. Yes, you absolutely can. Please message me on LinkedIn or email me. Just get in touch with me, and I will add you. We're already in the second phase of beta, but it's a great way to try out all the new features. Are there code samples for today's talk? Absolutely. On the Adobe ColdFusion GitHub, we've got CF spreadsheet stuff. We also have code samples for the charting stuff, which is probably going to be maybe a couple months from now, maybe 3 months from now. We'll have a talk on that. And because they always ask, can I run my production workload on a copy of the beta engine? No, you cannot. Please stop asking that. It makes me angry. All right. So real quick, how many of you are familiar with ColdFusion to be able to hold a more than 30-second conversation about it? So I know you guys are. You know ColdFusion a bit. You've heard me talk about it, maybe a little bit. So I'm just going to go real quick about what it is and what it does. So it's an abstraction on top of Oracle Java. What that means is if you want to program and have it end up as Java bytecode, but really may not actually want it all to be Java or any of it to be Java in the first place, you can use ColdFusion. It eventually runs on the JVM, so you have all of the good, fun stuff that gives you scalability, security, memory save, but you don't necessarily have to code in Java. It's an entire dev ecosystem. You'll notice I'm not saying it's a programming language. It's not. It's a really big misconception. People think ColdFusion is a language. It's not. It's a whole series of tooling, and you can program in multiple languages, and more potentially are coming. Right now, we have a tag-based block logic style programming language that looks a lot like HTML called CFML. We have CF script, which looks a heck of a lot like JavaScript. It's ECMAScript-like, if you'd like. And you can just program right in Java as well, if you like that. If you want to get frisky with Java, you can. And more is coming potentially. We're thinking of adding Clojure. We're thinking of adding Groovy, maybe JavaScript directly. Corbin. I know. You're waiting. No, we are actively working on adding new stuff, maybe Python, so that's potentially coming. It's a rapid application development framework, and you'll see some of that in my code. You'll actually be able to see that the functions that we use abstract away a lot of complexity. It means that you can program faster. That's the whole point of ColdFusion, is getting more done quicker, getting your stuff in front of your stakeholders so that they can give you feedback so that you can improve. Nobody gets it right the first time. That's just the laws of the land, right? You're always going to misunderstand some aspect of an application design. And so this gets it in front of more people more quickly, more often. We include tooling like API management that comes with the platform, PDF generation manipulation, spreadsheets, which is what I'm going to talk about today, or adjacent to spreadsheets. We're going to talk about CSVs. Charting, so data visualization. There's an entire engine that was just completely revamped that creates beautiful charts. You can add themes. It's really great. And then image manipulation and creation. And really, really flexible data access. That's sort of what ColdFusion is famous for. Any data, anywhere, in any format, at any endpoint, we can hit it, we can pull it, we can ETL it, and throw it somewhere else. I haven't run into a data access point that I can't get into ColdFusion, and that's one of its big strengths. And it's fast and easy to learn. I did a test with 3 amazing developers, got them to learn it in 2 weeks of training. Well, 2 of them, Obi, did 2 weeks of training. Obi didn't do any, and he still learned it. 2 hours. So if you are an excellent developer, you can pick up ColdFusion like that and be able to use it. Yeah. He owes me a beer or 2, at least. All right. So let's talk about really quick some of the things that are coming in ColdFusion 2025. You might hear me talk about CF being one of the main programming languages that the government and military use. And so because of that, security and stability are really high points in it. So coming in 2025, we have a ton of security updates, a bunch of upgrades to our OEM libraries. We are now part of the Adobe Bug Bounty program. So if you've always wanted to hunt bugs in ColdFusion, now you can, and you can get paid for it. So it's no longer a private thing. And then a bunch of other updates there. VS Code Builder. So we have a VS Code Builder extension, and it has been vastly improved for 2025. Everyone that I know that went from the old version and is currently in the beta, it's like night and day. If you used to use it and didn't like it, please give it a try again. We made huge strides and improvements to it. Tons and tons of bugs are fixed. It basically just works for the most part. We're still cleaning up a couple things there. I'm not going to go through every single change in language. The reason why I have this up here is so I can begin to try and destroy one of the big myths about ColdFusion. Everyone says, oh, it's a dead language. It hasn't changed in 30 years. Like, who even uses that? Every year we have lists this big. In 21, the list was 3 times bigger. So these are all of the things that we've added, improved, or updated inside of ColdFusion 2025. And some of these are bangers. Mod in QFQ is a great one. I've been asking for that one for a while. Anyway, lots and lots of changes there. Performance updates. So, excuse me, my voice is a little bit shoddy these days, so I may have to drink. This is definitely a Coca-Cola. Yeah. Stay in school, kids. So in 2023, we didn't really talk about performance updates. It's because in 2023 there weren't any. We just didn't have time to do that in 23. We added a bunch of features. We didn't improve performance. We heard you loud and clear. That's not acceptable. So 2025 has a vast number of huge performance increases. Some of them at 1,000x. Yes, huge. We had to triple and quintuple test that one, but the changes are big, and they're going to really impact the speed of your applications. The biggest ones are definitely in the spreadsheet library. Being able to do streaming spreadsheets is a huge win. And compile times in QFQ. So QFQ is query of queries. That has been a thorn in my side for a really long time. We've completely rewritten the way that works, and it's much more performant than it was before. CF chart, I mentioned a little bit. It's the same library, but completely updated to the newest version. We also added things like templates. So if you have a company, you have your color schemes, your designs that you want, create templates and apply them to all of your charts at once. That's something you could do before. It's all server-side rendered as well, which is nice. We added SVG support. The thing I'm going to be talking about today, spreadsheets and CSV. We actually added a bunch of spreadsheet capabilities. Not going to really talk about those today. We're just going to focus on the narrow band of CSVs, but this is something that I've been wanting for quite a long time. An MS Graph. Who here does MS Graph integrations at all at work? You guys? Well, no Microsoft. No. Okay. Government tends to use a lot of Office 365. And Microsoft said a few years back that they're removing any and all authentication that isn't MS Graph based. So we figured it was time, and we dropped an integration in. It allows you to do user control, auth, data access, you name it. There's actually a whole slew of things it can do. We've added just a narrow band of that, and we're waiting to see what people ask us to add in, because there's probably 200 or 300 features. Docker Kubernetes. One of the easiest ways to try out ColdFusion is to pull it into a container. It's just, you can go to Docker Hub, bring it in, it's running on your desktop, you don't have to change anything. It's super easy. That said, there were things we could do better, so we added secret support, Docker config support, made it a little bit easier to use in production. Okay, let's talk about CSVs. Who here knows what a CSV is? Corbin's like, okay, so CSVs, common separated value list, very common, very easy, very common use case and workflow that everybody has to do in their job. I've lost count of how many workflows that I made for it. In ColdFusion, it was fairly easy, but you still had to deal with things like regexes to make sure that the line breaks were being interpreted correctly based on where they were coming from. It was a little bit of a pain. We've removed that pain. It is now all built in, and the functionality just kind of works. And we're adding three for sure. And I'll talk a little bit about the fourth one. This was an idea that I had that's in the Jira. I just don't know when it'll drop live. It may come in an update. And there might be some changes to CSV read and write also that might come in an update. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's go to the code. All right. Actually, let's start by, whoopsie. Hello. Okay. Yes. There we go. All right, so this is a little app that I built that is using the new CSV stuff, and I'm going to kind of go through top to bottom of how this page works and how it's using the new CSVs. It's also a little bit of a look into how a ColdFusion application is built in a very simple way. So the code for this page, oops. What? Oh, I was clicking in the wrong place. This is much harder than it should be. Anybody know a good chiropractor? Okay. So basically that page is fairly simple. We're using HTMX. Who here knows what HTMX is? You guys. You know HTMX? What's that? What? HTMX? Sweet. Okay. Anyway, HTMX used to be my favorite choice to do very simple reactive programming. I guess that's what you would call it, or asynchronous, whatever. So basically what HTMX does is it lets you pick a DOM object on the page, like a div or a span or whatever, and say, go to the server, find an endpoint or a page or whatever, bring back whatever that thing generates, and drop it into the middle of this object. So you can create viewports that are dynamically updated. You could update a row in a table dynamically. You can do basically anything you want in between the middle of two tags. So here I've got a file container and a view container. And when I click those buttons, they go And so they replace the thing at the top. Pretty simple, right? Okay. So what's making this actual list? This is the first. I should have just done a mirror note for next time. Okay. So this particular. Yeah. This particular button goes on and gets display files.cf. All display files does is it goes and it instantiates a function inside of a component, which is basically ColdFusion's object-oriented methodology. So it goes, it creates an object from the spreadsheets CFC, and it invokes the function display data files. So what does that look like? There's spreadsheets, and and here's display data files. Okay, very, very first thing that we do, we create a variable called filtered results, and we just use directory list and bring in a variable that we set in application.cfc. What does directory list do? It's a built-in function that goes to a directory on your file system, pulls back all the files, puts them in an array, and lets you iterate through them. One example of ColdFusion just having a built-in function that just does things. Very, very easy. I go and I look through them, and I build out that list that you saw with the list of every single CSV that was there, and there you go. So simple as that. Now when I click that, it generates a table. That's pretty cool, but that's not what a CSV looks like, right? Not even close. Okay, so what's it actually doing? So it's actually calling display data as table. And here's the first place where we actually see the new CSV stuff going. So what we do here is we go and we grab the name of the file and we pass that in. So we passed in the name of the file. We go and we grab the current directory from the path. Again, that's a built-in function called ColdFusion that allows us to see where we are and then from that traverse back and pull the full path so that it knows where it's actually going to go get the file from. We're setting the format to query. That's really important. Query is a somewhat unique object inside of ColdFusion. Technically, it's an array of structs, but it's more than that because ColdFusion actually understands that it's a query, that it has rows, that it has columns, that has column names, things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to read in that CSV, and we're going to make it a query object, and we're going to put that into memory. But there's a problem. If you know CSVs, you know that the very first line is essentially always a header. It's always going to be describing what the column names are. Unfortunately, in the current version of this function, it's not aware of that. It just makes it the first data row, which is problematic, right? You don't really want that. But in some cases, you may have a CSV where the first line isn't a header row. It does happen occasionally, I guess. It's kind of a weird and dumb CSV, but it happens. So what I'm actually doing here is it's a little bit of a hack. And the engineering team is actually taking my hack and incorporating it in a more intelligent way into the way this is going to work. There will actually be a flag that does what this does. Hopefully it gets in production. in a month or so. So what I do is I call get metadata on the query. Again, that is a built-in function, ColdFusion. It gets all of the information about what is in the query. So number of columns, number of rows, what the column names are, all of that, and it puts it into memory. In this case, I call it query metadata array. Then I go and I get the length of that array. What that tells me is the number of columns. Then I create a header array, and then I loop through the query results just to the first row. Now, you might be saying, but Mark, that says 1. Everything starts at 0. You're looping twice. Now, Adobe ColdFusion starts at 1. Sue me. It's always been that way. It's never going to change. So that's the thing you do have to change in your head when that happens. So we grab the first row, which is the headers. We drop that into a header array. And then we create a read configuration where I set the header of the incoming query to be that array, and I skip the first record. Then I call CSV read again with that configuration. It's a hack. It's not performant because it's doing the read twice. It's not the end of the world. Hopefully, at production, this will make it in. I've been seeing the Jira get through its paces, so hopefully it'll actually ship with the final thing. And there we go. And then basically at that point, sorry. One of the things that I did here is, this is already a query, but I wanted to show that it really is a query by using query execute against it. This is a built-in function inside of ColdFusion that allows you to execute a SQL query against a data source. That query is considered a data source. Any query can be one. And so in this case, I'm just selecting star from it just to be silly. But you could, in theory, order this if you wanted to. You could filter at this point if you wanted to, right? Which is kind of difficult and weird to do usually with a CSV. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's extremely fast. Like, it's query of queries was already the fastest type of query, and we 10x'd it in 25.
But is it only to memory process and ordering to memory, or is it like by parts? Some query?
It's all in memory. Yeah. So the question for people outside was, how fast is a query of queries compared to doing an order initially on the first thing? And they're not even comparable. Like, it's like microseconds versus milliseconds. Like, it's an order of magnitude faster to do it all in memory this way. That's a good question. That's a problem. Get more memory. Yeah. We have a stream for spreadsheets. We don't have a streaming version for CSVs. So I guess the question would be, why are you pulling in a CSV that's that big? Because it's a text file, right? Like, if you have a text file that's hundreds of gigs big, that would be, I don't know. But I guess, it would be problematic to pull back data.
It's not about gigs. We had provision videos about memory levels. And we had to increase memory administration area.
Interesting.
So it was megabytes.
Interesting.
But it was all.
Yeah. Things have definitely changed. The JVM has.
Yeah, in JVM, we have changed what's the limit of memory.
Right, and that has changed. Oracle has updated the way that the JVM. And by the way, this is Oracle. It's running on an Oracle JVM. Tomcat is way faster than it used to be. I don't really ever run into memory issues now. It's not even a thing. long time ago, there was always memory leak problems. But we're talking 10, 12, 15 years ago. Like it was a while. I don't know how long ago you were dealing with it.
Last time, a year ago, but it was, I think, old version. It was
Okay.
2017 version.
Okay. That should not have had those issues, but yeah, generally speaking, it does react well to more memory, like any Java. Like any Java engine loves RAM, right? That said, I wouldn't call it inefficient or anything like that, right? It's still very performant. It'll go up against any other engine out there for the most part. I mean, Deno probably kicks his butt, but it is pretty fast. So it's interesting they were having issues. I'm not sure what was happening there. But it shouldn't be a problem unless it literally can't fit in the memory allowable, which was happening. We had customers in the federal government that spreadsheets so big they weren't fitting into memory. And so we actually had to create a system where they could stream them in, process them, record them, and then stream them in. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there, but okay. So we query a query. We pull that into a new query called ordered query. I don't know why I said that, but I'm not ordering it anyway. And then I just go and I loop through and I oopsie. And I build a table out of it. Real easy. So there you go. So that's how I build that table. That's a fairly trivial example. Now, why would you ever do that? Like, it's a CSV. Why couldn't you just open it in Excel or whatever? Well, did you get shrimp and grits?
No. No, it's very
It's really good. You'll enjoy it. Okay. So the reason why you'll do any of the things that I'll show you how to do today is usually just up to access. And let me back up a second because all of these file features are speaking to a particular interaction which a lot of programmers have or will have in the future, and that is working with and dealing with data analysts in the workplace. So for the most part, you've got this sort of middle ground between the super non-techie business people and the super techie programmers, where people are like very, very good at Excel, for example. And I really, I consider those people programmers. Like, they do amazing things with Excel. They blow my mind. But usually those are not the people that you let onto your production servers. Because it's not a database. It's not a programming language, right? So how do you get their data into your data? How do you transfer it over? How do you ETL it? How do you do any of that? You don't want to give them physical access to drop their data onto the server. That's a security issue, right? I guess you could FTP it and read it in, but a system like this can be something where they could potentially use the system to like drop a CSV in without having to actually have physical access to the machine and drop something else different if they're like a bad actor or whatever it happens to be. So let me show you the next tab here. Yeah. Sorry, my curious.
Yeah. I was saying that there is I noticed that your concatenating strings build out HTML. They're not in XSS. If that data is input into the backend, why do you use something?
Totally. Yes, and I should probably add. So the question for viewers out on the World Wide Web is, Corbin asked, is there not potentially a security vulnerability in the way that I'm just concatenating a bunch of data and then putting it into a string and dropping it and just rendering it out to my page? Yeah, absolutely. If this was a production system, I would clean that data before it came through. I would probably, and there are built-in functions. I just sort of I went a little quick and dirty on this, but there are definitely HTML like encode for HTML is a built-in function. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's built in. Yeah, I would never do that. Even though I would never actually have a publicly accessible version of this type of thing anyway, because you don't want to allow people to just drop stuff in and I mean, ColdFusion is pretty hard to inject against, but I don't want to give people any funny ideas. But good question. Okay, so let's go here. Oh my gosh. Definitely need to change up how I do this. Okay. So, what's a good name for a CSV? Anybody? Unicorns. Okay. And I am just going to grab a CSV and do salary data. We all love salaries. Salaries are great. Yeah. Didn't save all the money. All right. So we know that is definitely a valid CSV. And we're going to go in here and paste that in here. Okay. I didn't mention it earlier, but there is a limitation of read and write CSVs. CSV, the function, the built-in function. That limitation is it is expecting to be dealing with a file. Now, generally speaking, that is the case. Most CSVs are files. But CSV data doesn't always exist only in files. Occasionally, it is read in through other means. For example, if you want to just generate one here. So this is an additional, I told you that there's a fourth function that's coming. This was an idea that I had, which takes CSV data that is in memory in some way, whether that's from a form or some other, like a query, and allows you to transform it from there into some other type of object, whether that's a query or XML or whatever. That isn't there yet. So to preview this, oopsie, I actually, unfortunately, have to do the old write a temporary file and read it back in trick. So hopefully that will go away. I don't think that one will make it into production necessarily, but update 1 should probably have that transform in there. It will be useful for actually like working with stuff that's in memory. But there you go. I just made a CSV. Well, I didn't make it yet. It's just in temporary mode, but when I save it, we go back and unicorns! Here they are. And you look down here and there's unicorns. Okay, awesome. So that's pretty easy. Now this is the one that probably has the most value in an administrative sort of capacity. Previewing them, okay. Are you going to create CSVs this way? Probably not. But editing CSVs? Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. So let's do that. Go to edit and let's edit unicorns. Sorry, this screen is so tiny. I know it looks giant, but okay. So I don't know. Let's change this to not say last raised date. Dates. And then we'll go ahead and save the changes. And then if I come down here, hit that, and usually if the screen wasn't the size of a tiny thing, now you can see it's been updated. Okay, so how did I do that? So this one's super easy actually. Display data file. So once again, I'm instantiating a function inside of my CFC here. And there it is. Oh, right. Sorry. So display files for edit is the exact same as display files, but it just calls a different file, which is edit CSV. Tiny edit CSV. Okay, there we go. Now that entire page is just that much code, and it even fits on this tiny screen. So all I do is I grab the CSV file. I changed the format because I want to write it as a CSV. So earlier we were putting it as a query. Here we're taking a CSV file and basically making it a CSV file. I read it in, I go, and then I drop it into the text area here where I did the edit. The preview creates it in the temp directory. The save deletes it from the temp and saves it back to the file system. Easy peasy. Okay, I got one more demo, and then we'll open it up for questions. Hey Ryan, are you seeing any questions on? Are you seeing any questions on online, LinkedIn, YouTube, anything? No.
I am not. I saw John Barrett say hello, and I posted something asking them to post any questions, and I'll keep monitoring it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Okay. So the last thing I want to show you is kind of a fun thing. If you wanted to search through a CSV, how would you do it? Right, you'd probably open it in Excel, I guess, and hit Control F. But what if you didn't have Excel? Like, I guess you'd have to open it in a text edit. Like, it wouldn't be super easy. So I actually wrote a little thing that could look into a directory, find all the CSVs, and then allow you to search inside of them. So let's go back a chat transcript among engineers discussing ColdFusion. And let's see how many of them are named Corbett. How many of them are named Michael? And then we're going to go ahead and search. If my screen wasn't tiny, you could have seen that pop up. All right, there you go. So a fair number of them are named Michael. In fact, a frightening number of them. And they all seem really happy with ColdFusion. It's weird. It's almost like this was created by something that I told to have a positive reaction to ColdFusion. Thank you, AI demo data. Okay, so how did I do that? One second here. Okay. So as before, I grab a CSV, I put it into a query, I do the dance with the header and all that. And then I use something a little bit different. Here we go. So there was CSV read, there was CSV write. There's something called CSV process. And CSV process, instead of just dropping everything into a big file or into a query or whatever, allows you to add a user-defined function to filter whether or not a row should show up. So it's basically a filtering mechanism, right? So what I did here is I wrote my own thing, and I used find no case, which is a built-in function for ColdFusion, which searches for a string with no case sensitivity. And I pass in the param. If it finds it, yes, cool, do it. Render it. If not, ignore it. And then it builds the string out. Again, if I was doing this, as Corbin mentioned, in a production environment, I would filter and make sure that I am properly, keeping people from injecting stuff in here. And then, boom, drops it, right output to the screen, and counts the number of entries in the file name and drops it in there. And there you go. So those are the three things that are being added to ColdFusion 2025 for CSVs. There's also a bunch more stuff. There's a bunch of stuff in spreadsheets that maybe we'll talk about at another talk. But I've been talking for a long time, and my voice is about to give out. So let me grab my mouse back. And, oops, no, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so, so that is pretty much it. Ryan, if you want to come back on, if people might have questions for you guys here. Does anybody here have any questions for me about ColdFusion, CSV stuff, any of that? Yeah.
Okay. The problem with CSV is it has different formats. Sometimes a quote like double quote, sometimes single quote, sometimes it's not also tabular. So is your functions recognize it?
Yes, that's a really, really good question. Thank you for bringing that up. So yes, let me. Oops.
For those on the feed, what was the question?
Oh, sorry. Yes, for those on the feed is so one of the people in the audience asked, are there options to do some like code, like data quality filtering? So like if the quotes are a different quote than you might be doing, or like if the separator values are different, like is there a way to get around that or to set that for a CSV so that it actually filters in all the fun stuff that we used to have to regex? And yes, there are. It still has to be valid.
Yeah.
Right. It still has to be a valid CSV. So you can't turn an invalid CSV into a valid one using this. Unfortunately, you'd have to ETL it first and drop that. But what is that? Okay. So there are a number of different settings that you can do, and I could send you a link to this if you wanted to read through it. But yeah, so doing things like what the character delimiter is, allowing missing comments, the encoding, tons and tons. The escape character, like what character you want to use to escape if you have like double quotes or whatever quotes in there, empty lines, header case, whether nulls are null or even recognized, all of that, record separators, right? And then a skip header record, which you saw in my code. So the answer is yes, there's definitely a ton of settings.
Provide function, but I want to get CSV this double quote. What if customer appear other one? You recognize it or automatically?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure what it defaults to. I think I'd have to test that out. That's a really good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that would like keep from breaking. I know it does a lot of the stuff that I used to do to clean CSVs automatically. So I think it actually knows better for people in the audience. The question was whether it knows, like if the customer uploads something and it has a particular setting, that isn't the default. Like if the character delimiter or something is different than the default, you'd have to know that, or it would potentially break. And will it be able to detect it? I think in some cases, yes. In things like delimiters, though, that's really hard, right? Like you don't want it to assume a delimiter, right? So in some cases, we would have to actually know that a thing is a delimiter. I would argue if there isn't a specified delimiter, is it a CSV? I mean, I guess it is, but and there are different ones that are acceptable, but yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you kind of have to give them rules. I don't know. But yeah, it's always a fight, right? It's always like, how flexible can you be? But I don't know how I would do that if I was programming it. I mean, I guess I would keep trying until it didn't crash, right? Like, let's try it with this delimiter. Oh, that blew up. Okay, let's try it with this one, right? Are the columns the same width? Okay, then it's probably the right one, but maybe it's not. Right. That's a good question, though. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, it's much smarter than I am. But yeah. Any other questions? Anyone? Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all online for coming. Thank you, Ryan, for sponsoring the streaming. Thank you to my voice for surviving 48 minutes of this. It's about to die. We will be doing this every third Tuesday. I think fourth Tuesday of the month. So hopefully we'll see you all again. See you all again online. We'll keep streaming and doing things and having more exciting information about ColdFusion. Thank you so much, Ryan, for all of your help and support. Is there anything you wanted to say before we come off stream?
Next round's on me.
Cheers.
Awesome. You can text me your credit card info. Awesome. Well, thanks.
Just send me the bill.
Gotcha. Thanks, buddy. All right. And thanks for coming, John. John was online. All right. I'm going to end the stream here. Where's my mouse?
I got it.
Can you? Okay, yeah. Sorry.